Hello! Welcome to another new video series. We've moved on from Project Prometheus. I'm going to put a recap video up at some point, I swear. I did actually end up releasing it. I put it up on Reddit. Yeah, I'll go more over into kind of the post-mortem in another video. But this video, I want to start a new series. I've been feeling like I really want to be more generative and creative, so I'm going to be putting up a new video every week, hopefully, of new D&D scenarios. These are going to be custom homemade scenarios taking place in my homebrew world that I am creating alongside them. Once a month, we're going to create a new map, and that'll also be going up on the channel. Now, this week, and probably most weeks, it's going to be a scenario geared towards one player, a duet game. That's largely because that's what I can get to play. I've got people around me who do play D&D, but as we're all busy adults, it is extremely difficult to align schedules to play a game. So, that's most of what I play is duets. I don't think there's too much content on there. There's a lot of great written content, but I haven't seen too much video, so hopefully this will be a great resource for someone out there, and, hi dog, we'll be able to kind of expand as time goes on and we get in this habit and we keep on growing out and out and out in terms of what we cover. So the adventure today is called On the Aarakockra Trail. This is a level 1 adventure, once again for one player. I'm going to leave a lot of stuff up to the discretion of the DM, as far as like how they get in touch with this, how they kind of handle a lot of the finer details, if there's more players, how to scale that up. I'm not going to handle that. This is video, and all these videos in this series, the purpose is to give kind of an in-depth explanation of the scenario itself. These are not going to be connected scenarios necessarily. They're going to be wide and desperate ones. But the idea is after watching this, you will have an idea of how to run the scenario. And then in the comments down below is a reference sheet, just a quick one-page reference sheet that the DM will be able to take, have at the table, and have all the important details needed at the table, like what monsters, what traps, what circumstances and situations, what are the difficulty rolls of things. And I'm doing it this way because in the large campaign books that are getting put out, which are beautiful and incredibly well written, frankly for me don't work. They're way too big and way too long and have way too much detail. I don't have time to read them, let alone look up all the corresponding details that are needed when I'm at the game table. So the idea here is you get a broad context from the video, and then in that reference sheet are the quick references of the important facts. Hopefully I'll get the right important facts put on there. So, on the Aarakockra Trail, the players have arrived in my world, my custom homebrew setting that I've got. They arrive in a place called the South Peaks. This is an area that is a southern section of a medieval chivalry sort of based society, King Arthur type sort of stuff happening, royal lines and houses of knights. But this place, the South Peaks, is the very tip of the continent. It's almost completely separated by mountains. As a result, it's kind of been left alone by the kingdom of Ger that it belongs to. Ger is the name of the kingdom. Now, because of that, this has become a bit of the Wild Wild West. It's kind of infested with all sorts of goblinoid tribes, especially orcs, and they kind of live this nomadic, marauding lifestyle. And for everyone who is not monsters there, that leads them to also lead kind of nomadic lifestyles. In fact, if a tribe of peoples ever gets too large, then the orcs come in and start to tear stuff down. There's one tribe in particular that keeps itself small, but has tangoed with the orcs in the past and come out on the correct end. In fact, they tangoed with them so long and so hard that their poor little dancing feet got sent all the way back to orc strongholds. And they kind of get left alone nowadays. The reason for that is ages and ages ago, ancient history, it was thought that there was a piece of the Rod of Seven Parts near this tribe. And so scouts from the plane of elemental air were sent to try and find that piece of the Rod of Seven Parts and came across this tribe in desperate struggle against about 100 orcs, which, you know, for small tribes, that's a lot of people. In fact, it looked like certain doom for the tribe, and the scouts that were being sent ahead, where they were Aarakockra, these are, I believe, neutral good, you know, they wanted to help this tribe out, and they dispersed the orc rabble-rousers. And that kind of instilled a fear of the orcs of this tribe. And the tribe, because of that, started to worship the Aarakockra as their guardian spirits. Some of them had never seen a flying birdman that descends out of the heavens with mighty winds at its beck and call. In fact, they summoned air elementals and all sorts of magical things. So it was very natural for this tribe to glomp onto them. It has created a whole religion of high priests and acolytes that venture into the mountains to the lair of the Aarakockra every month to try and offer protection rituals to them and express gratitude for this initial day of deliverance. Now, the tribe has run into a problem where the high priest has gone up into this mountain for 2 days and has not come back down. Now, that's very strange because this ritual only takes about an hour and it's about like a 2-hour walk up, so this is just an afternoon trip. And it's never taken very long. In fact, they were so distressed and concerned that they sent their acolytes up yesterday and they're still not back. And so they're very concerned about their religious clergy members. And they asked the party to go and retrieve them, figure out what's going on up there, bring everyone back safely. And if they do, they're going to give them whatever they can from their tribal riches and offer it as thanks. Now, the entrance to this mountain trail that leads up into the Aarakockra's lair is very clearly marked. It has 2 large totem poles put up in it that are each about 7-8 feet tall. The first 4/5 of the totem pole have these winding, curving patterns etched all along them. And that's supposed to represent the plane of elemental air. And the top 5th of that totem pole is the face of an eagle with 2 wings coming out the side. So, obviously a piece of religious significance. However, these totem poles, there's something wrong about them. They're completely scratched up from top to bottom. They're just, you know, claws all over them. In fact, if the players notice, there is very special attention paid to the eyes. The eyes of the eagle are completely scratched out. Now, arriving at this trailhead, they are also able to see there's a torn satchel pack about 20 feet in, and it has a little bit of blood on it. Its contents are spilling out into the trail leading up. As well, the players are able to see up ahead and above them, soaring high overhead, 2 very large birds. And with a sufficient nature check, they'll be able to pick out that those are eagles. Now, as the players get closer to the totem poles, the eagles start descending, circling around each other. The closer they get to these poles, the lower the eagles get. As the eagles descend, the players are able to spot in the middle of this circle that they are creating, there's something shining, something that is slowly taking shape. And once they reach the totem poles, they're able to see that it is some half-bird, half-man sort of creature. It is, in fact, a simulacrum of the Aarakockra that it leaves behind in order to protect its home. Should the players cross the totem pole line, all 3 creatures, the 2 eagles and the simulacra, will dive bomb with a maddened rage to attack the players. Now, when I playtested this, my player was a dwarf warrior. He dove into a forest, and I had these birds in their maddened rage dive into the forest, and I had them take 1d4 damage if they failed like a dexterity check. This actually ended up killing one of the eagles and kind of made the fight a little bit better, which was nice. Since this is meant for 1 player, you got 3 creatures against 1, even though the CR is really low, you know, 1 hit might kill someone. So you got to be very careful and conscientious about that. Give the characters a bit more of a break. Typical guidelines around playing a duet game apply here. Having dispatched those characters, the simulacrum will turn into ice and snow and wind itself as it shatters and crushes onto the forest floor. If the players open the torn pack, then they will find a bunch of tanned hides with, with various hieroglyphics painted on them. Now, if the players were able to get the story of deliverance from the village elder, then they'll be able to put two and two together and realize, oh my gosh, this is a retelling of that story pictorially. Also, they can pass a religion check and figure it out on their own. Following up the trail, before 20 minutes pass, they start to hear crying and whimpering come from the nearby forest. That should be enough to get the players to run over and check it out. Should they do so, they'll find the two acolytes there, a man and a woman. The woman has claw marks all along her back. Her robes are tattered and bloodied. Both of them are in the robes of their office of a light tan and dark brown trim. And the man is on one knee, consoling the woman. They have clearly set up some sort of camp here. There's kind of food dispersed. The branches are all pressed down. They've kind of camped out here. If asked what they're doing here, they'll explain they were attacked by the eagles and their guardian spirit, and they don't know what happened. They're extremely confused. They were sent here to try and find the high priest. Should the players bandage up the acolyte, they're really just going to want to continue their mission. They want to keep on going up the trail. They want to go and find the high priest. So it's going to take some really good role playing and a good persuasion or intimidation check in order to convince them otherwise that either they allow the players to go with them or they send them back to town and let them move on. Should they pass that, they're able to receive a vital piece of information from these acolytes, that the trail, the beaten trail, the well-worn pathway, is actually not the right trail. They worship guardian spirits of the air. A terrestrial path doesn't really make sense, and so they created that path to distract various orcs or goblinoids that would try and destroy their guardian spirits without them there to help support them. So this trail actually just kind of winds around the mountains and goes nowhere. They will tell the players that there are a set of fetishes and other symbols strewn about the forest that relate back to their Day of Deliverance story that have the true path through the forest to get to where the Aarakockra's lair is, to where their guardian spirit is. Now, when I playtested this, I just kind of made up random facts. Like, oh, you see a pillar of rocks, and that's kind of a symbol of the creation of the foundation of their culture. And you find an arrow that is stuck in a tree as the tree has clearly warped around it and is starting to subsume it over time. But this arrow has large eagle plumage. And that's, the acolytes told you that that's to represent the Aarakockra coming out of the sky and delivering them. And so that instructs you to head uphill from here. You can make up these details as you go. But the idea is that will lead them on the right path. If they fail at this, then they'll be able to follow the acolytes as they head up. They might, be able to see these strange omens and puzzle it out from there. I'll leave that up to the DM, but most people should be able to get this. The DC isn't very high to convince these guys. It's like a 12. They're scared. They are terrified of, the fact that their guardian spirit attacked them. That is just deeply disconcerting to them. And before they leave, they do ask the party, please do not hurt our guardian spirit. We don't know what's going on, but we need to get things back to normal. We need the guardian spirit. We serve him. We need to make sure that everything's okay. So following up the trail, the players will eventually reach a large 20-foot span, a chasm that leads from one mountainside to the other mountainside. This is not a precipitous fall into a harrowing ravine with alligators coming up and snapping at them a la Indiana Jones. This is, it's like a 100-foot drop and then back up. It's something that you could climb down and up if you really want to. Climbing up I would have the players try and make a difficulty athletics 14 check. On failure, then they take 1d4 damage, and they have to try it again. When they get all the way back up, they take a point of fatigue damage. And this is really just to try and provide a puzzle for the players. In the playtest that I had, the player kind of did a lassoing with its rope and threw it all the way across the other side of the gorge, where posts of an old rope bridge used to be, and tied it against the post on his side. In fact, this is a detail I forgot to mention. There used to be a rope bridge spanning it. It has since been cut down, and it is now lying on the side of the cliff close to the players. So he created his own sort of rope to lead up across this span, and he went hand over hand. He passed all of his dexterity checks, all of his athletic checks, made it, not a problem. Your players will be able to have similar creative output here to get to the other side. It is 20 feet so that an 18 strength character won't be able to just automatically jump across. They'll have to think of something or make a roll or do something to try and cross that chasm. Having crossed, they are now set up for the big climax of the big fight. Going up the mountain, they start to see more of these totem poles. Each of them the exact same as the last, 4/5 elemental air, 1/5 eagle, and all defaced, scratched up, horribly so, with the eyes all torn out. As they get closer and closer to the top of the mountain, the air gets thinner, the wind starts blowing, the temperature gets colder, and they see this large crater in the middle of the peak of the mountain, creating these large crags of stone coming up on three sides and a pathway leading up into the lair of the Aarakockra. As they get up there, they'll start to see, feathers strewn about the ground. They'll see a very large nest off to one side. And in the middle, there's a large altar, stone altar, with stone steps leading up to it, and two massive totem poles, the exact same manner as the previous ones, but much larger, behind, on either side of this altar. They're about 20 feet tall, and in between them, strung up, is the high priest, tied up with his arms and legs spread out across the two poles, suspended over the altar in between these. He is clearly worse for wear, dirty, bruised, cut in a couple of different places. He is apparently unconscious. Now, what happens from here depends on how well the players did in the journey leading up to this. Did they find a way to quickly cross the chasm? Were they able to climb up the trail quickly? Did they go on a wild goose chase before they were able to find the fetishes and everything that lead them back onto the right trail? Did they get the acolytes to teach them? Depending on how fast everything has happened, have they taken any long rests? If things have moved very quickly, this is what happens. The high priest will raise his head, groggily open his eyes, squint, see the players, say, "Oh, thank heavens! Please, you have to rescue me. It's gone. It's gone for now, but we have to get out of here." Gives the players a little bit of time to go and cut down and free the priest. Now, there's a bit of an awkward moment here because he is tied up and suspended between two different totem poles that are about 30 feet apart. They have to find some way to cut him down without him being harmed, because, if you cut off all one side, then, it's just going to swing into the other pole, which you can decide to have deal damage to him or not, whatever, but the players may think of that and try and come up with a way to try and help him out. As they're doing this, the players may start to notice that there are different colored feathers here, that there are light tan and dark brown feathers. There are also a lot of colors that seem to be more recent, that are actually black. In fact, if they succeed at a perception check or a nature check, then they're able to discern that the oldest feathers, the ones with dust and mites crawling all over them, are the light brown ones. And then the more recent ones are black, and there's a gradation of feathers in between in layers. That's just to give a hint that this Aarakockra has actually become corrupted. It has changed. Something has shifted about it into a more sinister form. Bringing the priest down, he will beg to just be taken back to the village, to leave this place immediately. As they start to leave the lair, they will hear a thunderous caw-caw, the sort of caw-caw that comes from a crow, not from an eagle. In fact, this is so loud it sounds like 100 crows all cawing at the same time, not in a disorganized cacophony of caw, but in a single loud, booming caw that all of them were going at the exact same time in a sort of unnatural synchronicity. If the players continue to run, it's going to be up to the DM to decide kind of where this Aarakockra, who has now become corrupted by some unknown force, will catch up to them. For me, I felt it would be very dramatic to have him catch up at the chasm that spanned the two peaks. So the player had the high priest on his back. He was a dwarf warrior, and he was going hand over hand across this bridge. No, not hand over hand, because they were going downhill at this point. So he grabbed a stick and was sliding down. And so as they were sliding down, this Aarakockra slams into the ground on the other side of the trail that they're sliding down towards, as he throws his javelin and severs the rope. And the player and the high priest cascaded, falling and slammed into the cliff face, taking a little bit of damage. Regardless of where you have this happen, there's going to be a fight. The Aarakockra is very aggressive, very much so wants to kill the player. The high priest will be begging the player not to harm the guardian spirit. The guardian spirit does not have such compunctions and will very much attack the player. It'll be up to them to decide how they want to handle it. There is a way to get out of this without being overtly aggressive towards the Aarakockra. The high priest, if pressed for information, will say he's noticed a necklace around it, an amulet that he hasn't seen before. And he says it looks something like a skull. In reality, it is the top half of a human skull with the jawbone missing. And fungi are growing and sprouting out of the cavity. This is the symbol of a demon high lord. In fact, if you're familiar with this, it's the queen of fungi, and she's a major part of Temple of Elemental Evil. You can start segueing into something like that from this adventure. If the players are able to remove the amulet in some way, then the Aarakockra will start to kind of come to its senses. It will start to fight against the corruption inside of it. And it will start to slowly shift its color back to its normal eagle-type sort of feathered form. This, in practical terms, means that it can't fly, and it has disadvantage on attack rolls, as it is combating against itself while it's trying to fight the player. If they do this, it should be pretty easy to just dispatch it. If they don't end up killing it, by the time its feathers turn completely back to normal, it keels over, it is dead, it has rid itself of the corruption, but it cost it its entire life. Now, in the game that I play tested, remember, they have landed up against the cliff. So, I had this great fight scene between them on the cliff, trying to swat away this Aarakockra. He actually hooked into the amulet and yanked it off, and that caused the Aarakockra to scream in terror as it spiraled down, because it can't fly anymore, spiraled down this 100-foot drop and just splattered on the ground. Yeah, super sad. But that's how that ended for that, and your team will have it end in a different and satisfyingly dramatic way. The High Priest will be grateful that you didn't exude any damage towards it. It'll recognize that it was corrupted and beyond repair. Unless the players did not remove the amulet, in which case he'll not be very happy. He will be understanding that something had to be done, but his reactions and reception to the people of the village after he's brought back, that'll all be much colder. In a sort of a grim, like, we did what had to be done, but at what cost sort of manner. Returning back to the town, the villagers will greet them with a raucous night of dancing around the fire and celebration, and will gift the players 13 gold pieces as a reward, with 4 bison pelts, which weigh a ton, and 1 emerald that they actually pry out of the village chief's headdress in gratitude for bringing back their clergy members and trying to purify the guardian spirit. As well, if the players search in the nest area, I had my player, he wanted to go back and search over there because he was kind of running from it. It'll be 11 gold pieces and 25 gold pieces in jewels and various baubles that it has collected since it has become like kind of a crow. It is kind of attracted to shiny things and various carrion that it has brought to the nest, including, you know, like goblins and stuff that may have certain trinkets on them. That's all if the players have gone quickly. If they have not gone quickly, then they arrive to see the Aarakockra in its nest feasting on a deer. And everything else is going to play out just as normal. So that's it. That's on the Aarakockra Trail. Playtesting this, it ended up actually pretty well. Things moved at a pretty good clip. The player felt like they were able to make meaningful choices and to advance a story, that it was consequential and not episodic. So things had consequences and they kind of led from one thing to another, and not this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. It kind of felt like one united thing. So that was good. Some notes that I had from that is that it's important to kind of maintain the illusion that the village doesn't really know what the guardian spirit is. And this is kind of a religiously guarded secret. The high priest and the acolytes, they only go up there together once every 6 months, and that's just to kind of train the acolytes and bring them up in the knowledge of the rites and teach them of the day of deliverance and what it all means. The high priest goes up once a month to commune with the Aarakockra, but I never said Aarakockra. I always mentioned it as a guardian spirit because these are kind of tribal people. They don't really have a deep intellectual understanding of the various planes, and so that kind of helped bring the world a little bit more into it, I think. So, hopefully that is of a value to you. Like I said, all the great references, important facts and key story beats and numbers and everything should be in the reference sheet down below. I hope you enjoy. Let me know if you run this. I'd be thrilled to hear how it goes. As you can tell, this is very low budget right now. We are kind of just trying to get in the habit of getting these things out once a week. So expect more high quality updates in the future. I want to start getting some editing in, but I've just got to work out the schedule and on how to bring in music and images. Although I've got a lot of great ideas, so stay tuned. A lot of stuff coming by in the future. If this works for you, if this is a good idea, leave me a like. That'll help me to know that this is valuable to people. And otherwise, subscribe for more updates and more weekly adventures. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.